Feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. I want to start today with a story, and it goes back to when I first started my business, and I was working from Starbucks a lot. I didn't have an office, and I had this deep need to see people during the day. So I had a little crew of regulars in there who I would run into at my local Starbucks. And usually my rhythm was I would be there first thing in the morning and I would be out by lunchtime so I didn't become a total loiterer, right? And what I'd learned was basically the whole place emptied out by about 11:30 in the morning. There was a definite crowd in the morning. People came in later for maybe a coffee date with a friend or a business meeting. And then by about 11:30, it was pretty empty. And I was usually out by then. But every now and then I'd get on a roll and keep working because I wasn't really bothering anybody. It wasn't like it was crowded or busy. Generally, I would be writing something and wouldn't want to get out of the flow. And so I'd be writing and kind of work through midday. And then like clockwork, at 3 o'clock, a line would start to form again. It would have been empty from 11:30 till then. Everybody was there fueling up for that proverbial second shift, trying to stay awake through the long afternoon and the evening that was ahead. So think about it. For most of us, a lot of people, 3 p.m. is sort of midday. If you got up at, say, 7 a.m. and you plan to stay up till 11 or later, 3 o'clock is kind of the halfway point. So you'd see this line form and they'd get in line for that venti pike or a triple shot espresso, yawning and scrolling through their phones, a little brain dead, and then heading back into their cars, mentally preparing for whatever they had to take on that afternoon. And I remember watching that ritual and thinking that it actually made me kind of sad. Not because I have anything against coffee. I actually love coffee. My morning coffee time is probably my favorite time of the whole day. But because I really had gotten clear about the effects that afternoon coffee habit were having on that long line of people. And I think most of us haven't really considered why. We haven't paused long enough to say, why is it that every afternoon I feel this desire for one of two things? People will either say, I need to go get some caffeine or I need to get sugar. Right? Those are the two things we'll hear people talk about. So as we get started today, what I want to ask you to think about is, how are you feeling today? Are you wide awake and alert? Or are you maybe feeling a little foggy or sluggish? Or can you not even tell the difference anymore? If I had $1 for every high-achieving woman who told me that she needed more energy, I probably could retire by now. Because being under-rested, it's practically become an epidemic. And honestly, it's a dangerous one. And here's why. Because most of us misdiagnose why we're so tired. We often attribute it to, well, I'm not getting enough exercise, so I'm feeling kind of sluggish. Or it's my age. I'm in my 40s, I'm starting to slow down. Or sometimes you'll hear people say, it could be hormonal and I want to go have my hormones tested or my thyroid tested. All of those things absolutely can play a part. But mostly, if we wanted to get underneath why we're feeling so chronically lethargic, under-energized, it's really about not getting enough sleep. What's started to happen as I've been paying attention to this is being under-rested has started to become a point of pride. She who sleeps the least wins. But it's just not true. She who sleeps the least is tired and cranky and foggy, right? She's not performing well. Honestly, when we don't have enough sleep, our metabolism slows down. We're not at our best. And the last thing we need at that point is another coffee because it will mask the true condition that we're dealing with, which is we need rest, right? So we don't need another coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We need sleep. And sleep it's a powerful drug, right? It's one that we literally cannot live without. So what I want to do today, if you are among the chronically underrested, you're definitely not alone. This is, as I said, practically an epidemic. But I want to give you something to grab onto to help you get back on track. Because the benefits of getting your sleep patterns in line to really deliver the energy that you need to live the life you want, it's transformative. So I'm going to give you a few things today that will help you if you need to reset your pattern of sleep and also help you understand what is enough for you and how to get it consistently. So here's the first point. The first step to sort of get some control over this area is to run a sleep experiment, probably for 7 days. And what this will help you do is dramatically reset your patterns. So you're basically just going to make sleep a priority for 7 days. And the goal would be, for most people, a good starting point, 7+ hours of sleep a night, no excuses. So when I say no excuses, if you get interrupted at night, maybe you have a child who wakes up or a pet who comes in or you have to get up to use the bathroom, then you want to add a nap at some point in the afternoon, probably a short one, to close the gap so that you're getting 7 hours of sleep within that 24-hour cycle. Now, ideally, of course, you would get 7+ hours all in one stretch, but that's not always 100% within our control. The point of this is to break our old habits so that you can reconnect to how you feel when you're rested. Okay, so if you're listening to me and you're sitting there thinking, no, you don't understand. I run really well on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I want you to see how you'll feel on 7 or 8, and then we'll talk. At the end of that, if you've done this experiment and you believe that you feel better on 4 or 5 hours than you did on 7 or 8, go your own way, right? At that point, you've kind of proven to yourself that your theory is accurate. But if you haven't done this experiment, then you don't really know. Because what a lot of us have done is adapted to how that level of being chronically underrested feels. We've essentially normalized it, and we've forgotten what it feels like to be well rested. So I want you to reconnect to how you feel with adequate sleep. And there's a couple things to really pay attention to. I want you, as you go through this experiment, to pay attention to your ability to focus. How are you better able to stay on task than you typically are? I certainly want you to pay attention to your energy level. Are you moving through the day with more energy, more positivity? Pay attention to your mood. Are you generally feeling more upbeat, more positive, more optimistic than you traditionally do? Take stock of your patience level at work, with your colleagues, at home, with your spouse or your children. Do you feel more patient, more tolerant when you have more sleep? I want you to assess the clarity of your thoughts. Do you feel less muddled, less foggy? Are you more clear about what needs to happen and then more motivated to actually get it done? And I want you to pay attention to your attention span. Can you stay on task longer? Right? Are you able to persist through something that might be complex or difficult when you're feeling more rested? So those are all sort of feelings and attributes. And then there's one other thing during this sleep experiment, and that is I want you every morning when you wake up and you step into the bathroom and you're at the sink, I want you to pay attention to how do your eyes look? Because often our eyes are the first place that we can pick up signs of trouble and really the first place that we start to see a difference, right? Whether it's the dark circles or the puffiness under our eyes, or even, are your eyes clear and bright, or is there a redness and a dullness to them? You really look closely at your eyes every morning and see if you're starting to notice a difference as the days progress. So if you do this for 7 days, the hypothesis here is that it will help you reset your pattern. First of all, you will be in a rhythm of getting 7+ hours of sleep. And secondarily, you will have connected to why it matters. All right. And that is going to make the rest of this process infinitely easier. So if you try to skip over this step, then it can be more difficult because you haven't really experienced the benefits of being truly rested yet. So you're kind of flying in the dark. All right, so that's step one is sleep experiment, 7 days, 7 hours each day, each night to assess how you feel. Now, let's assume that this goes well and you realize that you're feeling pretty good with this much sleep. Then the question becomes, how do you sustain that? All right, and there really is one single focal point that will help you consistently get adequate sleep. And that is choosing an end time for your day with intention, right? Being very intentional, very clear about claiming control over the end time of your day. Now, here's why that matters. For working women especially, the two biggest reasons that most of us forgo sleep when we do, there's one of two. The first reason is to get more done. So you'll find yourself saying, I'm just going to get through these emails, right? I'm going to sit on the couch and get through these emails, or I'm going to pay these bills, or I'm going to clean up the kitchen, or I'm going to get things set up for tomorrow, or I haven't been able to go through the mail. So there's this sense that we can extend our productivity by staying up longer. That's the first reason. The second reason that we often stay up later than we intended is it's the first time all day that we've had any time for ourselves, right? It's me time, finally. So either alone or with our partner. So we might want to sit down and watch a show together on TV. We might want to sit down and have a glass of wine. We might want to just plain old sit down for the first time all day, right? We might want to have a conversation about something. We might want to read a book or journal or get on our phone and look at social media. But there's this preciousness to that late night time that we've assigned as like, that's our time. So we can't give it up in the name of sleep or we won't have any at all. So we need to break those patterns. Those two things are what are standing between us and sleep, the desire to get more done or the desire to have more time for ourselves. So here's what happens. When we intentionally choose an end time for the day, it essentially gently forces us to get the most important things done earlier because we don't have any more overflow capacity. That gentle forcing, right, which sounds like a paradox, but it's how this works. Having an end time for the day, I am going to bed at 10 p.m. no matter what, says if I don't get the most important things done before 10, they are going to be undone going into the next day. And if you don't like the idea of that, then you're probably going to prioritize the most important tasks earlier in your day. It also sort of allows the least important stuff to just fall off the plate completely. So maybe there's places where we're perfectionistically overdoing something and it's taking more time. If you know there's no overflow capacity, 10 o'clock is as late as you're going to stay up, then you may kind of take the 80-20 on something that you would otherwise have been, fussing over and trying to perfect for longer. You may be more willing to ask for help. To have other people in the family participate in some of the tasks that need to get done, or other colleagues at work shoulder some of that workload if you know there is no overflow capacity, right? It's the natural limiter on the day. It works the same way with me time, right? If you know that after 10 o'clock, there is no more time even for you to do something pleasurable because it's dedicated to sleep, then you may choose to get some rejuvenation time in earlier in the day when it's actually more meaningful, right? When you actually have energy to do something besides scroll through the feed on your phone or watch a mindless show on Netflix, right? You may choose to do something that is more rejuvenating, more beneficial to you, but requires a little bit more energy if you're doing it earlier in the day. So I am not arguing that this is easy, especially if you have not been doing it. You are going to fight this with everything in your being. You are going to tell yourself it's not possible, that, she just doesn't understand my life, that she hasn't been where I am. And what I can tell you is this is the practice that I leverage with a big job, 3 children at home, community involvements, running a household. All of those things are a part of my life. But this practice is the one that allows me to go full throttle from morning until bedtime. Without a dip in my energy, without a dip in my mood, without a dip in the clarity of my thinking, because I'm starting every day with a well-rested body and mind that can bring everything I have into the work that I'm there to do. So in practical terms, the way that plays out is rather than a task that I'm trying to do late at night, taking forever because I'm kind of sleepy and I'm foggy and I'm not very focused, I reorient that task to something during the following day and I fly through it. It almost does itself because I have all of my mental faculties at my disposal. Now, if you are a night owl, that is absolutely great. You can choose to have your bedtime be 1:00 in the morning if that's what you want to do. And you can use your evening time to be very productive. If you are able to sleep later in the morning when you may have a low energy time to make up for it. My natural rhythms are I go to bed pretty early, I wake up very early. I still get this 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. When those hours happen is entirely up to you. So if you know that you are actually wired to be productive at night, you can take advantage of that. You just can't shortchange the morning. And most of us as working women have a hard start on the morning. There's a particular time that we have to be up, getting kids out the door, getting ourselves off to work. And so that's what creates that limiter in the evening. But if you know your natural energy is higher there's no law that says it has to be 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever. It can be very late at night. It's the sheer number of hours of sleep that you're trying to protect for. So whatever time you pick, it has to make sure that you can protect for that number of hours.
Feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
Now, this may sound easier said than done. You may say, okay, got it. I'm going to pick my specific bedtime. How am I going to do that? How am I going to actually make it work? So the third point I want to make is once you have chosen your end time for the day, the next step is to establish a wind down routine that supports that bedtime, right? A wind down routine that you can use to sort of mentally and physically be moving in the direction of sleep. So that starts with, back to my coffee opening here, killing the caffeine after about noon. This is why that afternoon line at Starbucks gets under my skin a little bit, because caffeinating in the afternoon and masking that need for rest is going to enable you to stay up later. So you will feel better temporarily, and you will not feel tired at the bedtime that you've set for yourself. And therefore, you stay in that cycle, right? It's this vicious cycle of I've artificially stimulated myself so I can stay up later. Now I'm waking up in the morning and I'm still exhausted because I haven't had adequate rest. So when we honor your true need for rest, it helps you stay in a positive cycle. And that positive cycle is what consistently delivers that level of focus, of energy, of positivity that you really want. So no stimulants after noon. If I do go to Starbucks in the afternoon because I want to meet a friend or because I'm going to work on something, you can get a great decaf tea. You can have hot water with lemon. Like you can be in a place where other people are drinking caffeinated beverages and just choose something that doesn't have caffeine. So that's the first step. Then the rest of the wind down routine starts maybe an hour before your planned bedtime, whenever you're planning for that to be. I think of it as shutting down the house, winding down the house. So here are a couple of suggestions that could be part of your wind down routine. And You need to choose things that work for you. But these are some ideas that have worked for some of my clients, or some of the things that I do. The first part is cleaning up the main rooms of the house to bring a sense of visual order. Visual chaos is something that your brain will fight with. It will not be as prepared to rest if it's taking in a lot of visual chaos. So think about clutter as, visual chaos. This is why when we think about restful places, we think about, a spa setting or a hotel setting where there's nothing on the surfaces, the linens are white or they're very simple, there's very simple drapery treatments. Like you want to have that soothing sense of visual order. Regardless of what your home looks like, you want to bring a sense of order back to it. So getting things off the counter, getting the dishes done, putting away clothes that are on the floor, those elements will help your brain get signaled that it's okay to start relaxing, start shutting down. Here's another very powerful cue is dimming the lights. Or if you don't have dimmers, just turning off some of the lights in the house. So, bringing that sense of quietude to the house through lighting is a way to start to signal to everybody in your home that we're starting to wind down for the night. Now, if you think about, back before we had electric lighting and all of this computer-based stimulation, it was natural. Like it got dark outside, people got tired, they went to sleep. Right? They kind of went to bed with the sun and woke up with the sun. We've created such an artificial environment with lighting, especially all of the lighting that comes from our devices, that we are basically telling our brains, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. So anything that you can do to dim the amount of lighting or turn some off is going to be powerful. And then the third arena is sound. So there are some sounds that are very stimulating. Certain television programs, loud music or pop music that has like a really fast beat. If you change the sound pattern in the house to quieter and more soothing and slower. So I will often turn the music that's in the house to something like jazz later in the evening, or even to classical music, or very close to bedtime to something like a spa music, where it's basically white noise. Even without saying anything to my children or my husband, it starts to set a tone of the whole house is starting to slow down. We're starting to prepare for a restful period of time. Devices. Another part of this wind down routine is storing things like our phones, the iPads, the laptops, all the things that are creating this blue light all around us, and storing them ideally away from where you're going to be sleeping. Right? So just sort of powering down for the night, putting them in a cabinet, putting them in the next room. You don't have to be perfect about this, but the closer you get to not having devices near you during this wind down routine, or certainly at bedtime, the better you're going to be able to fall asleep and stay asleep. Okay, so that's kind of the electronics part of it, getting the lights dimmed, getting the sound down, changing the type of music, getting the devices out of sight. Then there is some preparation for the next day. So attending to the children's needs happens during this period of time, right? Maybe they need baths or showers, getting backpacks assembled for the next day. If you pack lunches at night, those kinds of things give you permission to shut down the day because you're prepared for the following day, getting their outfits laid out. And then your own needs that sort of fall in parallel to that. So washing your face, putting your hair up, changing into sleeping clothes or at least loungewear, like all of those cues that say, okay, now we're going into this sort of cocooning mode in preparation for sleep are signals, like you're shutting off switches in your brain that you need to turn on in the morning. Now we're turning them off and signaling that we're preparing for rest. And then the final piece of the wind down routine that I really think is powerful is making a list to clear your brain. So however you do this, whatever tool you use, whether you're a journaler or you use Evernote or you do it just on a piece of paper next to your bed, getting everything that is swirling in your head out of your head so that you can get off to a strong start the next morning is going to help you prepare to fall asleep. So this whole wind down routine that starts at midday with no more caffeine, no more stimulants, and then about an hour before becomes very intentional of, this is my wrap up period to prepare for the next day, is really the crux of why I think we are under-rested as working women. It's the psychology behind it. It's the belief that we have to get more done or the belief that we've earned our way to some me time. It's not having this wind down routine that's getting in our way. I could now switch gears and talk a whole lot about scientifically how to fall asleep and stay asleep. And some of you may have questions about that. This is just not that episode. This is more about why you need to do it and how to prioritize it. Because I find that worrying about little things like the room temperature or the thread count of the sheets and, whether or not there is any light at all getting in and if we need blackout shades, those are really good second level problems to address. But if we start there, we miss the bigger issue, right? And the bigger issue is the why underneath it. Why are we not making the choice to prioritize our own rest? Why do we not feel like we deserve to have adequate rest? That's the biggest issue that I see for working women, and that's why that's the one that we're focused on for today. All those other tools and ideas, we can get into another time, but none of them matter if you're not prioritizing adequate rest and believing that there's value and power in having it. So, to recap, this all starts with if you find yourself wishing for more energy, more focus, more patience, those are symptoms of being chronically under-rested, right? And the answer is simply not more caffeine so that you can run longer, harder. The answer is more rest. And so to change your sleep cycle, we outlined 3 steps. The first one was to run that sleep experiment. So you really have a visceral understanding of what it feels like to be rested for a week. It'll change your life, right? When you reconnect to what that feels like, you won't want to let go of it. So then in order to maintain it, the second thing we talked about was choosing an end time for your day. It can be whatever time you choose, whatever works best with your schedule, as long as that end time combined with your necessary wake-up time provides enough sleep. And for most of us, that's going to be 7-8 hours in that pocket. And then the third piece was to support that end time, establishing a wind down routine, beginning with, no stimulants after about midday, noon or so, and then that whole hour before bedtime being structured to be in support of the restful environment that you want to create so you get your body lined up behind the intention that you've set with your brain. I really want you to try this, and I really can't wait to hear how it goes, especially if you're somebody who feels resistance to this idea, who is thinking, yeah, again, that's great if that works for you. That is never going to work for me. Boy, you are the person I want more than anyone else to try this, to see the power that it has in your life. Because when you get more rested, I think you're going to be surprised by what you have the energy to do. And that is really the perfect time for you to reimagine what's possible. So next week, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what it looks like when you're ready to step into your potential. When you can use all that energy for what you're really here to do. So let's get you there between now and next week so that you're fully prepared to have that conversation. And just to close today, I want to invite you to be in the community of women that we're building in Facebook who are committed to these practices. And we have a Facebook group that we have started called Brilliant Balance. All you need to do is go into the Facebook environment, search for Brilliant Balance in groups, and you'll find us there. And I would love to have you as a part of that community so that you can get some support as you adopt the practices we talked about today and all the other ones that we have been talking about in the podcast. So have a great day, a great week, a very well-rested week, and whatever you do, go be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.